What's up guys? So today I'm going to continue my trend of fixing things that are broken on my car by focusing on my driver's side headlight. Now if you saw my video talking about the things that I need to fix with my car, you will see that my headlight was cracked, it was hazy, and it was oxidized, and it looked absolutely terrible. So I will be fixing that today. Now this headlight here actually comes from a 2007 STI, but it's the same thing, and I found this on eBay for $300. Unfortunately, this was not as described online. Online it showed that the mounting tab, which should be right here, was intact, and it didn't mention that the electrical connections were also broken. Fortunately for me, the headlight that is on my car is just fine, so I'm going to swap this lens here onto that headlight. The good thing is, I contacted the seller, showed him pictures of my issue, and he actually refunded me 150 bucks. So this headlight here from eBay cost me $150, where one from a dealer would cost $600. Now, this video is going to show you how to bake headlights so that you could separate them apart and paint the insides. Since the headlight on my car is already painted inside, I'm not going to paint this one. This one's going to stay as is, but I'll show you how to do that process and how to bake them. So with that being said, let me get my headlight for you right now. This right here is the headlight from my car, and as you can see, it looks like crap. Now what I have to do is toss this in the oven for about 10 minutes at 110 degrees or so, and that's going to soften up the seal that is around my headlight, and that will allow me to pry it apart. To do this, I need to have gloves because it's going to be hot. I also want to use a screwdriver or a pry tool. Plastic is preferred. I also have this is an infrared thermometer, so I could check the temperature of the oven, but this is not required. And I also have black silicone to reseal this headlight when I'm done with it. And I also have some JB weld because the bracket on my headlight also broke off, so I'm going to reattach that as well. So with that being said, I'm going to preheat my oven and throw this in at 110 degrees. The important thing is you want to use a low temperature that is hot enough to soften up the adhesive, but not hot enough to melt your headlight or burn it. So here is my original headlight, and I just got done taking this apart. And as you can see, it actually comes out in 3 pieces. Now, here is the lens. This is the part that I'm actually going to replace, and I'm just going to swap on the new lens from my new headlight. This is the center insert if you want to paint your headlights. On my car, they are gloss black. You can pick any color you want. I know a lot of guys like matte black. Also, I chose to leave the halo ring around my headlights as chrome, and I just taped that off whenever I painted it. Some guys like to paint that as well for a more low-key look, but it really comes down to personal preference. Now, this center insert is actually held to the outer lens with 5 attachment points. Here, 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 and here. So in order to separate this piece, you need to remove those screws. Also, on the back of the housing, there are 5 screws that hold this outer lens to it. So before you start peeling away this silicone adhesive, what you have to do is remove these screws, otherwise you won't get anywhere. So if you're trying to remove this and it's not going anywhere, just make sure you didn't forget to take out these screws. And those are located here. There's one under this tab, one down in this corner, and one here. So there's 5 in total. Just make sure you remove those. They usually come out fairly easily, but there is silicone or butylene, whatever this is, that also gets stuck in the thread, so they may be slightly difficult. Now, as this adhesive stretches out, it's very sticky, so you just kind of have to come through with something. It doesn't have to be sharp, but you need to break it up and peel it away. Otherwise, you're going to have a heck of a time. So that's what I'm doing right now. As I have it separated with this right here, I'm going to take this piece in and separate this adhesive. And once I separate the top and the bottom, I'm going to focus on this corner. I always do this corner last because it's the most tricky and there's a lot of adhesive in this corner. It's getting more difficult because the adhesive is starting to cool down since this part has been out of the oven for about 2 or 3 minutes now. But I think I have enough done where I don't have to throw it back in, so I'm going to try and hurry up and get this done before it cools completely. There you go. So as you can see, you have the lens and the center insert, which I'm going to remove. And then you have the back of the housing. And as I said earlier in this video, I am not going to use this part. I'm going to use the housing from my other projector headlight that came with my car because that one is perfectly fine. So this is where the swap is going to happen. I'm going to take this lens, which is from the new headlight. This center insert, I could paint. I'm not going to. I'm just going to put it over here. And here's the lens and the center insert from my original headlight. So that is just how gross and nasty my original headlight was. So this is going to go over there with that. I'll probably hang on to those for spare parts because it's really not worth trying to sell them. But I'm going to start here building with my brand new headlight lens. This is just some adhesive on the outside. I'll clean that off. But I'm going to take my clean lens, my already painted insert, and I'm going to drop this right inside. And I'm just going to put my headlight back together just the way I took it apart. Now, to put this headlight back together, I have to do everything in opposite order, obviously. But that means that I have to heat it up before I can reattach this front lens piece because all of this adhesive everywhere is very tough and it's very thick and sticky. So I actually need to heat it up so that that softens so I could actually force this back together. Now I also have my silicone adhesive here. There are some other sealants that you can use, but I'm going to use this because it will work just fine. And I want to put a bead around this before I put it together and also do a bead after I put it together, and that will help it stay watertight. You do not want to work on your headlights on a very humid day because it can trap moisture inside your headlight and then you'll just have condensation issues from then on. But by using this silicone, you want to make sure that you redo the weather seal around here so that you don't have condensation issues in the future. Okay, so my tube decided to split open on me here. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you. I've never had that happen to a tube before, but it kind of sucks. Okay, so I have my two halves here, and my oven is preheated once again to 170 degrees. So I'm just going to push these back together. They're really not going to go back together at this point because, as I said, the adhesive is very sticky, but you at least want to set it in here, make sure it's in the groove, make sure it's going to go back together. And that's about as good as it's going to get right now. Just want to squeeze it a little bit. And then I'll just pop it in the oven just like this. You also want to make sure that the outer lens actually tucks inside this outer piece of plastic. That looks good. Now, I just got done baking my headlight for the final time. I already put all the screws back and everything, so I just heated it up one last time to make sure that the sealant had a chance to warm up and set and make a good seal all the way around the headlight. So now all I have to do is start putting this back together, and because I'm super anal about things, I am going to take my time doing this, but I am going to make sure that I lubricate some of the O-rings on here. Not that they're in bad shape, but it's not a bad idea since I have the whole thing apart anyhow. It's really not required, but it's just my own weirdness, I guess. All right guys, so here you have it. This is my completed headlight. All I have to do is throw it back in the car. And then I'll probably show you some footage of it in the daylight because it's already dark. This took me about 2 to 3 hours. It took a little bit longer because I was working with 2 headlights. So if you only have 1 headlight, I would set aside about 2 to 3 hours. If you're painting your headlight, obviously you're gonna need more time. But the paint does not have to fully cure before you put everything back together. It just needs to dry to the touch. Obviously you don't want it to be tacky or anything like that, but you don't have to let it set and cure for like 2 or 3 days. As far as difficulty goes, I would rate this on about a 2 out of a 1 to 5 scale. It's really not difficult. I don't know that this should be your very first project if you just bought a car and you're looking for something to do. I would, try something else first, but it's really not a hard project to work on. And you shouldn't be scared to do it. I know a lot of people are apprehensive about literally baking their headlights and putting a headlight that is probably $600–700 into the oven. But again, you're using a relatively low temperature. My oven was at 170 degrees. That's as low as it would go. But I left this in for 10–15 minutes at a time and there was no issues with it whatsoever. So I really wouldn't recommend putting your headlight in the oven more than 200 degrees. But it really depends. I know some headlights could tolerate more heat than others, but again, you're just using it to loosen the adhesive, so there's really no need in putting your oven at a ridiculously high temperature. That's not what you're trying to do. So I'm gonna wrap up this video here. I'm gonna roll in some footage of the finished product, and I wanna thank you guys for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should definitely subscribe because I have a lot of cool videos coming out. And as I've said previously, I'm gonna be probably working with more performance in the future. So if you're not familiar with more performance, then you're definitely gonna be in for a little treat. So I'm gonna shut up right now. I wanna thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.